This covers using the Vantiv element credit card processing in Eterm on a sales order. Credit card information can be stored for reuse in several different locations, each one having a different range of use. At the customer maintenance level, in the bill to or ship to, if it's stored there, then all sales orders to a particular customer or all sales orders to a particular job can access the credit card information. If the credit card information is stored on the contact and the contact is associated with a particular job or a bill to, then it can be used from there. That's not normally how it's used, though. And finally, the credit card information can be stored in a particular sales order. If it's stored at the sales order level, then the credit card can only be reused on that sales order or successive generations of that sales order. Here's a sample sales order that we're going to work with. This is going to be a common counter order with the order status changed to pick up now. Normally you just enter the amount for the charge in credit card received, although you can also use Alt-R for charge credit card. If a credit card has already been stored somewhere, either in previous gens of this sales order, in the job, in the bill to, or at the contact level, then they'll show up here on the list, and ordinarily you just select one of the ones that's already been stored. Modify the card holder and or any address information as necessary, and then select Alt-A for sale. The credit card transaction usually takes 3 seconds or so to process. It's pretty quick. In fact, it's usually so quick you barely even see this screen pop up. When the transaction completes, you'll see the amount overdue go to 0, and you'll see an approval number next to the credit card received. And the payment information, of course, will show up in the order. The credit card charge transaction information will be printed on the customer's invoice. I have them sign our copy before they leave. If you need to enter a new card for a sales order entry, enter in the total in the credit card received field as you would normally. In this process, this is going to be just a one-time transaction, so we're not actually permanently storing the credit card information. And hit enter. When you hit enter, the defined payments window will pop up. If you're not using any of the existing cards or they don't exist, select new. Select Alt-A for sale. You'll be presented with a card entry type. Swipe to use the magstripe reader or key enter for manual. At this point, Eterm will automatically launch your web browser to complete the next step. When this window pops up, you're ready to go ahead and swipe the credit card through the reader device. The reader device should have a green light on it. If you do not see a green light, the cables, the power cables, are a little fidgety on the back of the things. Try wiggling the cable and you should see the green light pop up automatically. As soon as you see the green light, go ahead and swipe the credit card. Within normally about 5 to 7 seconds, you should see a successful swipe ready to process window pop up. At that point, you can go ahead and select process the transaction. If you're doing a manual entry because you either don't have the credit card or it refuses to read properly, the screens will just look slightly different. As before, the web browser will launch, but this time you'll be presented with a screen where you can enter in the card number information, the expiration date, and the CVV number. After you've done this, go ahead and select the process transaction. When you get the transaction successfully processed response, you can now close the web browser window and return to Eterm. When you return to Eterm, you'll see the amount over or under due is 0, and you now have a credit card approval number. In this transaction, the credit card payment information has not been saved for reuse. This is just a one-time only doing. If you need to store the credit card information for later reuse before you go ahead and do a charge, you can certainly do that. Instead, you go Alt-I for credit card information, and you would select New. Keep in mind that you can store the credit card information, either tie it to the sales order, and then it can only be used on this sales order or successive generations of this sales order, or you can also attach it to the customer record so you can reuse it on the job or the bill to. After you select New and you're presented with the credit card default billing information window, go ahead and change the cardholder information if you need to, and change the authorization method to sale before shipment. Then you can either do an Alt swipe if you have the card, or an Alt I for key and manual. The web browser windows will pop up automatically. Usually within 10 seconds or so you'll see a successful information. If the information looks correct, go ahead and save the card. When you're given the transaction successful window, you can go ahead and close the web browser and return to Eterm. Once you return to Eterm and you're back in the credit card default billing information, you'll see that it's already pre-populated all the credit card information for reuse or to continue with your charge. If you escape out of this from here, the credit card information will be tied to the sales order for reuse in successive generations of this sales order. Or if you select Alt-V, you can go ahead and tie it to the customer records so you can reuse it for other sales orders. This is what you would normally do. When you choose to save to the customer level, you'll be presented sometimes with multiple options as to what to want to tie it to. Tie it either to the customer level, the bill to be used in any job, or if this is to be used with just a specific job, select the job that's supposed to be tied to. Complete the sales order as you would have before. Have the customer sign our copy, and as you can see, the amount over and under will be 0 and the credit card approval number will be displayed. The system allows you to void a credit card transaction, or more ordinarily you would do a return and credit situation. Voiding is only normally done if you've charged the wrong amount or the wrong card. You immediately want to just void that and rerun it with different information or different total. You could void and cancel a sales order if the product was returned for some reason on the same day, but ordinarily you don't do this. To void the transaction, do Alt-P to see the payment screen. Select from the list the transaction that you've just completed. Select Alt-O to void the transaction. Put in a Y and hit Enter. At this point, the original charge has been voided. As you can see, the amount due comes back and the transaction number disappears. At this point, you're okay to go ahead and complete the transaction with a new balance or with a new credit card number as necessary. Or if you need to, you can go ahead and cancel the sales order. As mentioned before, voiding is usually only used if you're planning on going ahead and recharging with different credit card information, different balances, and continuing with the sales order. Although once you have voided a transaction, you can go ahead and safely cancel the invoice and cancel the order. The system may bark at you because of course it sees a credit card charge transaction, but since it's been voided, the charge is 0. If canceling invoice, of course type cancel and hit enter. If you were to look into the payment that was voided, you of course would see an amount of 0 because it's been voided. The normal way of crediting a credit card is of course to do just a credit return sales order. Here's an example here, normal negative quantity. As always with all returns, the original sales order has to be referenced or the return is done on that sales order number. Since this is a return, of course, we're putting in a negative amount to credit back to the credit card and hit enter. Select the original charge to edit off of the list. You can charge for up to the amount of the original charge but not past it. You can charge for less than the full amount. Select Alt-A for sale. And the transaction is completed with the approval number and the balance of 0. The credit card transaction information will print on the paperwork, have the customer sign our copy, and that completes the credit to the credit card. And this completes the presentation on Vantiv Element credit card processing in Eterm.